Recording in progress. Okay. All right. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Let's start off with a little bit of thinking about motivation. So maybe we can launch straight into the text. And so I think we got to the bottom of page 253. more or less starting off there. So, okay, so that, yeah, that's right. So what was I going to say? So, I mean, we know from earlier on in the text, and also in the Bodhisattva, there's that Shantideva talks about two kinds of bodhicitta. Okay, hi there. Two types of bodhicitta. There's one that one's called wishing bodhicitta, munsem. Then the other one is engaging bodhicitta, juksem. Munsem, juksem. Some people say aspiring bodhicitta. So anyway, wishing bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. And he talks about the difference between them being that, like the difference between wanting to just sitting there and wanting to go somewhere, and wanting to go somewhere while you're in the process of taking steps towards getting there, right? So that's that's the sort of analogy. And so when it comes to these two bodhicittas, so wishing bodhicitta is simply wanting to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So wishing bodhicitta is bodhicitta. It is a type of bodhicitta. It is bodhicitta. And then the engaging bodhicitta is when you want to achieve enlightenment. Just like with the wishing bodhicitta, you want to achieve enlightenment, but at the same time, you're engaged in the practice of the six perfections. So so on top of the bodhicitta and motivated by the bodhicitta, practicing the six perfections, basically that's, taking steps to achieve enlightenment. And in our case, or anyway, just assuming, then, when you don't have the actual bodhicitta, so you know a bit about what it means to actually have bodhicitta, right? You can take the teaching from the three principal paths that what it means is when you don't just have a sincere, heartfelt wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, but it's kind of there day and night, and you don't have to think deeply about why. You've already done that, so you just have this very deep, naturally arising wish to achieve enlightenment day and night somehow. Yeah, pretty well informing everything that you do. So then on top of that, practicing six perfections, that would be like the engaging bodhicitta. And then for even when you don't actually have actual bodhicitta, we talk about meditating on bodhicitta. So in other, by which we mean trying to get to that point. You'll think about it, and gradually it makes more and more sense, and gradually the wish becomes stronger and stronger. So anyway, somehow, even if you're not an actual bodhisattva and you haven't got actual bodhicitta like that, you do, anytime you think about it, you think to yourself, yeah, I would like to do that. I want to do that. I really would like to do that because I really want to put an end to suffering, and so to do that, to have any chance of doing that, I have to achieve enlightenment myself. That kind of thing, right? So what we're doing now, learning about it, learning about bodhicitta, learning about the practice of six perfections, it all comes under that the heading of taking steps, actually doing something, because how else could it be actually? You don't start off at the end, you gradually build up to it. See what I mean? I mean, everybody that has ever generated this mind of bodhicitta, become a bodhisattva, progressed along the path to enlightenment, achieved enlightenment, they all started off where we are, as beginners. Certainly, that's in one way, that's the significance of, or the point of learning about, and then based on the understanding from learning, then actually practicing the six perfections according to one's abilities. That's the point of what we're doing. So we got to the bottom of page 253, right? Yeah. Okay, good. So with them, perfection, generosity already gone. We're now on getting towards the end of the part of the text that's concerned with the perfection of morality. So it's interesting, really, when you think of morality in general, moral, immoral, ethical, unethical, seems to be to do with doing the right thing. Ethical means you're doing things in the right way, which means doing them without, actually, basically without harming others. Really, isn't it? Like whether it's your the way you make money, whether it's the how you do your job, whatever, like not hurting others, so not cheating, not lying, not stealing, killing, and so on. So really, it's quite interesting in a way that something I've heard certainly many times from the Dalai Lama, and then sometimes from others. Particularly, like maybe after explaining some kind of like tough subject for many days, then the summary, the final parting advices to help others as much as possible, and at least even if you can't help them, not to harm. So that's it, really, isn't it? So, in other words, what's basic, what's fundamental, is not harming others, and then on top of that, helping others. And that seems to be like with the we talk about the three types of morality. There's the morality of restraint, morality of like the terms they use, the morality of collecting dharma virtues, what they say. I don't know why it's exactly why it's called like that, but it seems to be like generally like the morality of doing good things, and then on top of that, the third one, morality of helping sentient beings, accomplishing the welfare of sentient beings. So it's like the first one is the fundamental one, and it's the one that says don't harm others. And then the other two is like on top of that, try to do good things and try to help as much as possible. And so what Lama Tsongkhapa has just been saying is, of these different types of morality, I mean, the translator calls it ethics, right? Anyway, whether you say ethics or morality, the main one is the first one, and it's sort of like fundamental and somehow, well, that's what he's saying anyway, and that's what I've just been, the point I've just been trying to make. So it kind of makes sense that at least you don't harm people, then as much as possible you help. So the basic fundamental one is the restraint from harming others. And in terms of having, the vows of individual liberation, like lay vows and Bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, and so on, there's a whole, what it means keeping those vows right. Anyway, guarding. They say the sort of short definition of morality is the intention to guard. That's what they say. So guarding against doing destructive actions, harming others, and also guarding your the precepts that one needs to follow once you have received one of those vows or ethical restraints. As I said, often called ordination. You have lay ordination, and then you've got the precepts to follow, like so not to kill and so on. So anyway, that's what he's been saying, and it's sort of on a sort of gross level, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you could, it's sort of, how could you sort of make any sense of, or how could it be realistic to talk of helping others, practicing morality of helping others and doing all sorts of virtuous actions when you don't have the fundamental one of not harming others, which is mainly what the first one is about, right? Fundamentally the restraint from destructive actions that harm others. Anyway, so that's that. Anyway, then starting at the top of page 254, the last bit of this quote from the Compendium of the Perfections, which I think seems to have been by, this is Papa. Anyway, might be Ashvagosha anyway, but actually I'm not sure. Not 100% sure. So completely restraining one's body, speech and mind, in summary, is ethics. Yeah, okay, so restraining, guarding, restraining one's body, speech and mind, in summary, from, restraining, stopping them from going in a direction of something destructive. Said the victor, the Buddha. This is the basis comprising all ethical conduct without exception, so thoroughly train in it. This is the basis comprising all ethical conduct. So what he's saying would seem to be that the main practice of morality is the first of the three types, restraining your body, speech and mind from destructive actions. So that's the basis. Comprising all ethical conduct would be in the sense of, it's the foundation anyway. All the other types of ethical conduct or morality are possible only based on that. In brief, the practice of ethics is to take this. So then the translator adds in the square brackets, to take this restraint from the 10 non-virtues as the basis and repeatedly train in the mind of restraint that trains in the precepts of whatever ethics one has undertaken. So, making the foundation strong so that everything else becomes much easier. Then ethics are made, or morality are made to possess the 6 perfections. So remember before with the perfection of generosity, this is a general thing about practicing 6 perfections. Whenever you're practicing one of the 6 perfections, you practice all of them, one way or another. So are made to possess ethics are made to possess the 6 perfections like this. Generosity is to abide in in ethics oneself and establish others in them. So, so that's interesting actually, because you would think that the generosity would be establishing others in ethics or in morality. But how can, if you were going to, supposing you were going to get others to practice morality, if you're not practicing it, then what you have to say about practicing morality is not going to be very effective, is it? I mean, people are just not going to. Well, he says we should do that, but that's not what he does himself. So when a person is leading their life in that way, and then on that basis talks to other people about practicing morality, then it's much more effective. Their words have more power. And the remaining perfections are as above. So in the presentation of generosity. So I think it would be good to look at that, because I can't remember. Well, I mean, maybe I could, but anyway, he says it's just like in generosity. So that's on page 249, down at the bottom. Okay. Yeah, it starts at the bottom. So training in the perfection of generosity will be very powerful if at the time it occurs it is endowed with the 6 perfections. So specifically the 6 are made complete if at that time the ethics that restrain from mental attention of Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. So that means that your practice of generosity combines with the it's simply speaking, it would be combined with morality if you make sure that while you are practicing generosity, you don't harm others. So I mean, it could be as simple as I don't know, maybe if you wanted to give somebody something to eat, then you wouldn't go out and chop up a chicken in order to do it. Does that make sense? But you see, anyway, so there's the generosity of freeing sentient beings from danger. So that would be like I thought another one as well. But anyway, like you see some insects drowning in a puddle, so you pull them out, but then being careful as you walk towards the puddle not to tread on other insects. Or maybe it's there's no other way that they can do it, but like in a zoo, you're feeding live animals to lions. So here's my your practice of generosity is to feed the lion, but how you're feeding it is with another animal. I don't know if that would be I think that would be a little bit that would be like doing it without morality, I think. Anyway, it's just a thought. Anyway, but here it says without the mental attention of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. In other words, so you're practicing generosity without the thought of achieving your own personal liberation, without that bit kind of like motivating you, let's say. Then for the patience, the determination and patience derived from aspiring to the qualities of omniscience and patience when abused by others. So while you're practicing generosity for whatever reason, maybe people abuse you, so not getting angry at the same time. Then the joyous effort that generates the aspiration for increasing more and more. So while you're practicing generosity, you're taking joy in it, and that in itself would mean that you're going to keep practicing generosity. So the concentration, meditative stabilization, that is a single-pointed mind, not mixed with the Hinayana, which is similar to the one just before, and that dedicates that virtue to complete enlightenment. So anyway, the not being all distracted, keeping your mind focused. And then the wisdom that understands the object given, the act of giving, and the recipient to be like illusions. So the emptiness of the three spheres, they call that. The agent, the action, and the object. So then here then with morality, think about it. Maybe we can work it out for ourselves. So with morality, so you're practicing morality, and you want to practice that along with generosity. How are you going to do that? You'd have to think about what it means to practice morality, how you would be practicing morality. One thing is, because I know that one thing that used to confuse me a bit was that I had the idea that when it talks about practicing all six perfections at once, it means like simultaneously practicing six, almost like with one mind trying to do all these six things at once. But I don't think it means that. So practicing morality. So let's say, but what would be one kind of practice of morality? I mean, probably you've all got lay vows. Well,
Not,
even if you
not retaliating when somebody hurts you.
yeah, that would be right, wouldn't it? It's funny because it doesn't mention it explicitly like that, but if you were to hurt, well, anyway, yeah, I think it would. I think that would be it. Yeah. So then, how would you? So that's your practice of morality. How do you practice generosity while you're practicing that morality? You see, it doesn't mean necessarily, like just this one moment where you don't retaliate. I mean, you could say generally that you've heard this teaching. Where did I come across this more recently? I think it's in the Bodhisattva, and it's talking about the practice of perfection of patience. Oh, that reminds me. Gejing Awan Drapa, Saturday mornings at Sejingling, 10 till 11:30 or 12, is teaching the patience chapter of the Bodhisattva Charavatara. So, as somebody was saying to me recently, they really like attending those classes because there aren't many lamas of that generation left. He's 93, 94, something like that. Still a very powerful teacher. Anyway, so yeah, very much recommend that. Bodhisattva, the patience chapter is really quite amazing. So then what I was saying was, so anyway, so you've heard the teaching on the four Gejong Ichibashi, something like the four practices of somebody who's trying to practice, lead a virtuous life anyway. So, and one of them is that, so when somebody hits you, you don't hit back, and when somebody criticizes you, not criticizing. It's all to do with not retaliating anyway. So that, So what I'm saying is, so you could have heard that teaching. It's like, okay, so that's one of my practice. From now on, that's what I'm going to try and do. That's one of my practices. And it's a practice of morality, right? So while you're practicing that, at the same time, you can be generous to others. And there's different types of generosity, right? Material generosity, generosity of fearlessness, they call it, so saving people from dangerous situations. Now, what's the other one? There's one more or two more. Sometimes in the Tantric vows it talks about four.
Uh,
Dharma, sharing Dharma.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one. That's the one. Yep. So yeah, the generosity of the Dharma. So teaching the Dharma, or even just reciting mantras so that your pets hear. That's the generosity of the Dharma, right? Yes. So it could be any of those, right? I think that works anyway. So you're combining. It's not like you're just going to practice that morality and nothing else. So along with that practice of morality, you're also practicing uh, um, generosity, different types of generosity. So then, what's the next one? Patience. The practicing patience with that. Well, with the one that Genoa just said, it should be pretty easy, right? I mean, not retaliating is itself a practice of patience, actually, isn't it? Or if you're practicing patience, you would practice that anyway. So it's a practice of morality because it's not harming others. It's a practice of patience because instead of getting upset with a person and, like getting into a fight with them, thinking of thinking of the situation from various angles and not getting upset. Then, okay, so then concentration. Oh no, joyous effort. Next one. Next one would be joyous effort, wouldn't it?
can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So you said there's 3 or 4 of the types of generosity.
Oh yeah,
So I've got material giving, protection from fear, giving Dharma teachings, and what's the 4th one?
the generosity of love, loving kindness.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So joyous effort. This might be something you'd have to, possibly something you have to work at. I mean, like, I mean, there's quite a few things. There's quite a few things where you take on a commitment, and in the beginning it can be it can feel like a burden because you'd rather be doing other things. Like you might take an initiation and you've got a sadhana that you have to recite every day, but you'd rather be doing something else, kind of resenting having to give up that time every day. So actually, that's something to really think about and work on. That's really important because otherwise, it's like not only do you risk, well, of course, there's a risk that because you really don't like doing it, that you end up giving up, which wouldn't be very good. Or you're going to spend the rest of your life spending whatever it is, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, just feeling fed up because you're doing this practice that you don't want to do. And it's even possible that you'll get more and more and more and more and more fed up. So thinking about how amazing it is to have this opportunity and so on. I mean, you have to use your own sort of intelligence to understand why it's such an amazing, such an amazing, such amazing good fortune to have this to do each day. I think I try to think like that. It makes a big difference. Think of why you originally did it, refresh that memory and keep it alive and nourish it and make it grow, and then in the end you've got more of an opportunity of spending, whether it's 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever it is every day, where you're enjoying yourself, where you're doing something you really feel is meaningful. So anyway, likewise with the practice of morality. So like with, like the not retaliating, if you sort of bring some joy into your mind with that practice by recognizing that if you keep doing that, then you're going to get better and better at it. It's going to be less and less difficult, and so forth. Anyway, then anyway, that's practicing joyous effort with the morality. Then what comes next? Concentration. Can you think? I mean, I think generally it can always mean without being distracted. What do you get distracted by? Usually, if we talk about being distracted, it usually doesn't have some kind of good connotation, does it? So without being distracted, maybe as simple as that, just without being distracted. And then the wisdom would be the same as before, recognizing everything is like an illusion, all the oneself, the act of practicing morality itself, the like so the morality of avoiding killing, so the sentient beings which you're restraining from killing, that would be the object, wouldn't it? Anyway, I'm not sure that's the. I mean, that's good enough. Anyway, I have to think about that. Try to have all the 6 perfections going on. So then patience. So I think it's good to stop for a couple of minutes and just try to think, sort of summarize in your own mind what morality is, what Lama Tsongkhapa has been saying morality is, and how to integrate the practice of morality or ethics into the practice of the 6 perfections in general. Couple of minutes. so let's carry on with the patience. Quite a lot on patience. Anyway, so there's the nature of patience, the different types of patience, and then how to practice patience. So what's the essential nature of patience? So it says the nature of patience is the mind abiding at ease without being overwhelmed. So abiding at ease, in a sense, it's like Gishambhayat says, remaining in its natural state. Literally, it means that Neldunepa. And so what it means is, practically, it means not being disturbed. So, I mean, it might seem a bit pretentious to say, as you're sitting here, like everything's going okay, that your mind is in its natural state, kind of thing. Seems like that's something that you'd have to work hard to achieve, really, its natural state, which is the what do you call it? Is it, what do you call it? The state motto of Arkansas, the natural state. So anyway, the natural. So what it means is, as we're sitting here at the moment, like our mind is kind of calm and kind of calm anyway. Sort of feeling quite kind of even. Might not be feeling blissed out, but just sort of quite happy. Sort of like just feeling it a little bit at ease, kind of thing. So so somebody comes along and insults you for your appearance or for your whatever it might be, yeah, like that kind of thing. So you're just walking along. If you're kind of okay, just maybe walking along, kind of daydreaming, or maybe driving along. Somebody cuts you off. That would be a good one, wouldn't it? Everybody has to deal with that. You're driving along, so you're kind of okay, just driving along. Actually, people become quite strange with the driving, don't they? It's like, become kind of like maniacs. People who are normally quite good people then become maniacs. It's funny. But anyway, yeah. So so say you're driving along quite peacefully, and then somebody pulls out in front of you, and it's like, kind of, so then your mind becomes disturbed, right? Mind becomes disturbed. So the mind not becoming disturbed is what it really means. So remaining at the mind abiding at ease, remaining in its natural state, literally is what it's saying. Remaining remaining naturally. So what it means is like that again. It's basically just not the mind not becoming disturbed, without being overwhelmed by harm and suffering. So yeah, it's saying a lot about the practice of patience in this description of its sort of essential nature. So not being overwhelmed by harm and suffering. Somebody harms you, you're ill or whatever. So the suffering of being ill, the suffering of being cold, hungry, or whatever. Not being overwhelmed by it. It's sort of like the opposite. That in itself is the opposite of remaining at ease, isn't it? Being overwhelmed by the harm. It takes you over. As well as a very staunch belief in the Dharma. So that's interesting, a very staunch belief in the Dharma. chula mupa shindu nepa. So it takes some thinking about, as well as a very strong belief in the Dharma. So the word here mupa, sort of like appreciation for, but appreciation doesn't quite get it. It's sort of like when you study the mind and mental factors, like in the text by Katin Gyaltsen, or in there's this very good book about mind and mental factors and different types of mind in that was based on a teaching by Geshe Rabten, the late Geshe Rabten, and it was edited by Stephen Batchelor. So yeah, there's it goes through certain mental factors, and one of them is this one, so murpa, and he translates it as appreciation. And again, it's but when you look at the description, it's a little bit more than appreciation. Appreciation can be, that's good. Yeah, I think that's quite good. Appreciation, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's good. You appreciate what somebody does for you. Is to the description contains the idea of like really cherishing something, really thinking something is really good. So it's something to think about anyway. So if you have that kind of appreciation, I mean, can you think of a better word than appreciation that would have more of a sense of, like really thinking something is amazing, like really good, really thinking, wow, this is just so amazing, almost like it's the only one kind of thing.
Obsessed.
Okay, so we all have to be obsessed with the
Cherish it.
huh?
Cherishing.
Cherishing, yeah, it's sort of like appreciating plus cherishing. Appreciating, but I mean, yeah, cherishing is kind of better than appreciating, really. Cherishing, yeah. Anyway, so something that means thinking something is really good.
What about venerating? Like venerating. It's not
Yeah,
quite the same, but
Value.
yeah, it's venerating. It has that kind of connotation as well, doesn't it? Wow, it's just so amazing. Yeah. Anyway, you can think about that. I feel like there's another word that's sort of on the getting towards the tip of my tongue. Anyway, so that feeling of wow, the Dharma. So how does that help? To not be disturbed. So remember, well, we see these different types of patience. So there's the patience. Mainly, it's like the patience when somebody's harming you, and then there's the patience when you're experiencing suffering. Not being overwhelmed or disturbed by that. So somehow what he's saying here is that if you have that kind of wow, the Dharma is just so amazing kind of feeling, then that's going to stop you from or help you to stop getting angry, upset and angry, disturbed, upset, angry. Okay, so then its opposites are mituncho. Yeah, so yeah, its opposites are hatred. So let's see. It says hatred there. Even though there's two different words in Tibetan, it's very difficult to find a difference between them. So shedang but the shedang is usually translated as hatred, and then kontro as anger. I feel like in the English, they're quite different. You can hate something without feeling angry, right? Can't you? I might feel quite calm and say, I really hate this. I really hate what they're doing. But I'm not angry. Well, I think so anyway. But anyway, it's good to be aware, like if you're reading through the Bodhisattva and sometimes it says hatred, sometimes it's anger. In the Tibetan, there's not really any difference. Then Soshi was a disheartenment. Then lack of belief. So, so anger is the opposite of patience. That's pretty straightforward. Then then disheartenment. So somehow disheartenment, I think this is where, maybe not so much the opposite of patience, but opposing factors that oppose patience, that sort of prevent. I mean, in the case of hatred, that's the opposite of patience. Disheartenment, losing, becoming discouraged, losing heart, that would maybe not support the practice of patience. Then that lack of belief, if you can see how the belief, so actually it's the same word here. He says lack of belief, but before he was saying staunch. Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's right. So he was using belief. So for Merpa, which in that mental factors book is translated as appreciation, he is saying belief. And so that lack of belief, so a lack of, wow, the Dharma is just so amazing, the Buddha's teachings and what those practices that he taught, so amazing. A lack of that is gonna also, it's like you've got one less thing in favor of being able to practice patience, if you see what I mean. Then dislike, midurba, not wanting what? So that's actually a bit of a problem, because if you, for this midurba, means like not wanting, in which case you find you, and maybe he didn't want to say not wanting, because then the question comes up, well, not wanting what? Whereas when he translates it as dislike, you could still ask dislike what, but it's a very different from not wanting, right? Not wanting, not liking. Anyway, I think that's okay. The completion of the perfection of, so that's generally speaking, you could just say that what patience is not getting upset. I mean, you might want to say not getting angry, and it kind of is that, but not getting upset, not allowing your mind to be disturbed when difficulties arise. And when it talks about the opposites, it's telling you about these factors that are supportive of the practice of patience. Sorry, which the opposite of supportive, anyway. Detrimental, undermine the practice of patience. When you have the hatred and the disheartenment and that lack of belief, then it's going to be difficult to practice patience. The completion of patience, the perfection of patience, is just to fully cultivate the mind that ceases one's anger and so forth. It does not depend on getting rid of unruly sentient beings. And, well, you might think that is obvious. The thing is, you see, what anger does is, what does anger do? It wants to lash out, it wants to retaliate, it wants to harm. It might even want to wipe out a whole country or race or family or village or whatever. It wants to destroy, it wants to harm. So then if that's what So the completion of perfection is just to fully cultivate the mind that sees one's anger and so forth. It does not depend on getting rid of unruly sentient beings. Yes, so doesn't depend on feeling. I think that maybe we don't need to say that it shouldn't be. I don't have to criticize the translation. It does not depend on getting rid of unruly sentient beings because like it that could sound like it doesn't depend on like destroying all annoying people, which is what anger wants to do. And then you might think, well, of course it doesn't mean that. But what you might think is, well, getting rid of an unruly person would actually, the only really way that can work is by stopping them from being unruly. So he's using the word unruly, getting rid of unruly sentient beings. So what Geshe Jamba Gyatso says is, it does not depend on freeing all sentient beings from their aggressiveness, which would mean actually they would all have to achieve enlightenment. So is this making sense? So I feel like if you're going to leave that as it is, getting rid of unruly sentient beings, you have to understand it as meaning getting rid of their unruliness, getting rid of their aggressiveness. And this would be a little bit like saying the perfection of patience isn't something you achieve by wiping out poverty. If it did, then even the Buddha would not have achieved that perfection. It would be impossible for anybody to achieve it, arguably. Because anyway, you'd have to say the Buddha hasn't achieved it because there's still a lot of poverty. So the perfection of patience isn't, of generosity isn't a question of getting rid of poverty. It's developing fully developing the giving mind, bringing the giving mind to its culmination, to its perfection. That's the perfection of generosity. So likewise here, it's the practice of patience is also not. It's not a question of getting rid of other sentient beings' aggressiveness. It's getting rid of your own aggressiveness, really. So the completion of the perfection of patience is just to fully cultivate the mind that ceases one's anger. So getting rid of your own anger is when you have completed the perfection of patience. Not, you don't have to get rid of everybody else's like aggressiveness. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Let's stop a couple of minutes and try to digest that. You can just think.
Venerable Steve.
Yeah, who's that?
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I was wondering, okay, so if you're working on patients and you know that it's your own, like it's like your own where you focus your own mind. Does that mean though that if you are like, okay, so you're in a situation where something could potentially trigger you to be disturbed. Now, if you're making the focus to not be disturbed, but you're having all these thoughts still like in the background of your mind, does that mean you just haven't actualized it yet, or you're still striving toward it? Or is that focus that you're not reacting, even though you have all these thoughts, is that the same thing?
Well, I think there's different levels, isn't it? Isn't there? I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
like the way we start off with is just the anger and retaliation and aggressiveness and so on, and then you start thinking about this, and so you gradually start working with it, and to have even to have got to the point where you don't retaliate, let's say, even though you feel like retaliating, that's already a step forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then as you work with it, what's going to happen, I think, only naturally, is that even the wish to harm becomes less and less. Because also, working with patients, developing patients. I mean, how much of it's going to come out in this short section of Lama Tsongkhapa, I don't know, but when you start going through the patience chapter of the Bodhisattva and also the patience chapter of the Madhyamaka is also really good. It starts talking about the idea, which is very attractive, of not only not wanting to harm the person, but really feeling compassion for them because of seeing how their aggressiveness is causing them suffering. They're being controlled by their aggressiveness, by thinking about the suffering that they're going to have to experience as a result of what they're saying or doing to you, that kind of thing. And you start working with that, then you can see how these things are just gradually going to build up, so that the wish to retaliate would naturally just subside, and you start thinking about how this person is helping me to use up my bad karma. So then you actually begin to cultivate a sense of appreciation for the person. There's all sorts of pretty amazing things actually in these.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's think about that couple of minutes. Okay, so now the different types of patience, so 3 types. There's the patience of disregarding harm done by others. So disregarding in the sense that kind of shrugging it off, kind of it doesn't matter. From your side anyway, how you feel, how it affects you. It's okay, it doesn't matter. So, I mean, obviously, if you're thinking that way, then you're not going to be upset, you're not going to get angry. Then there's the patience of accepting the suffering that arises in one's own mind stream. He says mind stream, actually, you in your own continuum. It doesn't have to be the mind. So, in other words, it could be, discomfort from the elements, sickness, that kind of thing. Not so much now the pain you experience that's inflicted on you by others. Then the patience of a mind certain about the Dharma. So, this one, the patience of a mind certain about the Dharma. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, the way that Geshe Jampa Gyatso explains it, which I think is clear anyway, it's the more like the patience in ascertaining the Dharma. What that means is that being able to put up with, not get upset by, and not get discouraged by the difficulties that you experience when you're working with the Dharma, learning about it, and also practicing it, I think. So what he says is the difficulties in understanding the Dharma. So you're trying to, I mean, it's hard work, isn't it? And in a way, it's kind of suffering. Learning is suffering because it's the effort, and it's the struggling and not understanding. You feel like you're so stupid because you're just trying to understand, just cannot get it. Everybody else seems to understand, but I don't get it, kind of thing. So feeling discouraged. And particularly when it comes to emptiness, which is interesting, really. So, especially when it comes to emptiness. Yeah, so I sort of, a long time ago, I had this kind of sort of idea, yeah, I understand emptiness. Not realized it or anything, I'm not kind of that kind of thing. But understand, it's just, so emptiness means nothing exists from its own side, and how things appear is like they exist from their own side. So nothing exists from its own side. So it's a pretty simple idea, really. That's what I meant, understanding. But it's not actually as simple as that. So one thing is just the theory that existing from its own side means completely independent of anything, and there's nothing which is completely independent of anything. Everything is dependent arising. It's not just that. It has to be related to your own mind and how things appear to you, so becoming very clear that how things appear to you is as if they exist from their own side, not merely labeled, completely independent of anything. Being very sort of clear that that's how they appear. And also getting a sense of what it means to say that we grasp things as existing from their own side. Or even we might say the word that's often used, apprehend things as existing from their own side, which is sort of, in a way, what it means is to believe things exist from their own side as they appear. So believing in appearances, but not believing in the sense like, oh yeah, that's how they appear, so that's how they are. Not believing in that way. So I guess I should say not consciously believing. More unconscious. It's more unconscious than that. So it's kind of more to do with not questioning how things appear. Things have a, if you look carefully, you will see that how they appear is that they exist from their own side, not merely labeled, not depending upon anything. But otherwise, they still appear that way, and we don't question that appearance. And again, saying that they appear that way doesn't mean, they appear in such a way that we think they exist from their own side. We think they're completely independent. That's how they appear, and we don't question that. And it's like everything is based on that. All the mental afflictions and so on operate based upon that belief, the belief in appearances. A bit like being in a dream, and you don't know you're dreaming, so it's not a lucid dream, right? So in a dream where something really horrible is happening, and so what we could say is the way that the dream things are appearing to you is as if they were real, right? And we believe the appearance, right? So it's like that, I think. It's like that. And then when you wake up, you realize that you were afraid for nothing. And there's probably going to be some residual sort of like kind of unpleasant feeling, but at least, like you realize there was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a dream. And of course, you can imagine if during the dream you had realized that you were dreaming, then it wouldn't be frightening anymore. So it's like that. It's like that. They often use the analogy of a dream, and for good reason, like a dream. It's also a bit like watching TV, You can watch things in a way, it's even more, it's kind of like even worse than a dream, because, you're watching things on TV, and a lot of the time you don't even realize that it's just colors on the screen kind of thing. You get really involved, right? You get really involved. So what's this from the text? I think something on this one. Okay, so I'm going to look at this. What's this all about?
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was trying to answer Lisa's question about the first and second
I
page.
see.
And then
Yeah.
I was trying to stay with you about where I thought you were about this third subdivision from the text about.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's I just saw the message coming up, so I wondered. So it's if it was a question, then I could have talked about it. But anyway, I think that's right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess Lisa doesn't have the text, so that's good to know. Right. So what I'm trying to say, anyway, so that's more like what it means to say grasping at things as existing truly or from their own side and so on. And even that, so that's more difficult than just knowing, oh yeah, it's just from its own side, means independent of anything, and there's nothing existing independent of anything. So that's emptiness, Done that one. It's more than that. But then more recently, what I've been hearing, the message I've been getting, not just like, from space, but from teachings from Kyoji Rinpoche, quoting many great lamas of the past, sometimes very distant past, saying that emptiness isn't what's difficult. What's difficult is being able to hold the two ideas in your mind at once, that they're empty but also they exist conventionally. This is what's difficult. Yeah, this is what's difficult. Anyway, so these things, yeah, anyway, so the difficulties in understanding Dharma, and especially in understanding emptiness. And I think really what he's talking about is that, you know, the understanding how emptiness and dependent arising are not mutually exclusive, but mutually supportive. Okay, so then, so those are the three types of patience. The patience of accepting the suffering that arises in one's own mind. Oh, sorry. The patience of disregarding, making light of harm done by others, I think is, you know, kind of like gets the point. Making light of it. Yeah, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Anyway. Disregarding, maybe. Yeah. The patience of accepting the suffering that arises in one's own continuum. I mean, it happens to oneself, really. And then the patience of a mind certain about the Dharma, which means the patience of not being upset and discouraged about the difficulties in trying to understand the Dharma, especially emptiness. Okay, so can do a little bit more. We can go a little bit further. Yeah. So, top page 255, how to generate patience in one's mind stream. So this, it starts out by understanding how much, how helpful it is to be able to practice patience, and how destructive the opposite of patience, what patience is the antidote to, in other words, anger or hatred, how destructive they are. So it's necessary to meditate on the benefits of patience and the faults of impatience. Anyway, non-patience, I don't know, impatience. Thinking about how later on you'll have few enemies, you will not be separated from dear ones, you will experience much happiness and mental ease, you will die without regret, and you will be reborn amongst the gods after this body has perished. So what he's talking about is the drawbacks of talking about the benefits, and at the same time talking about the benefits of patience, and at the same time the drawbacks of anger, really sort of implied. Thinking about how later on, so you know, so the kind of effect it's gonna have on you in this life, the kind of effect is gonna happen at the end of this life when you die, and the kind of effect it's going to have in future lives. So you'll have few enemies. So the thing is, you know, anger creates enemies. I mean, we can see that in the world in general. You know, you attack people and bomb people, and then you know, even people that weren't your enemies before, they become your enemies. So anyway, anger creates enemies, which is interesting, is because supposedly anger is supposed to destroy your enemies. Anger is supposed to destroy the people who are harming you. But it doesn't. It actually, you know, you get angry and kill somebody, so, okay, yeah, maybe you did get rid of one enemy. But then what about that person's friends and, you know, friends and family? Maybe their whole country's going to turn against you because you killed that one person. So it increases enemies. So you'll, on the other hand, if you don't, if you overcome anger, if you're able to practice patience, you'll have less enemies, and maybe even less and less and less and less. You will not be separated from from dear ones. So, you know, anger. Because of your anger, you hurt even the people around you that like you, and gradually They might even still like you, but you're just too much of a pain in the neck to be around, so they just avoid you, or you're just too dangerous to be around. Or maybe they don't still like you anymore. Maybe they end up just hating you because of your anger. So that's not going to happen. Somebody who practices patience is easygoing, easy to get along with. Not be separated from dear ones. You will experience much happiness and mental ease. So, by practicing patience, you'll. So when it says happiness and mental ease, this is a way of classifying the mental factor of feeling in the sense of like sensations into 5. You've got the suffering and mental unhappiness. So the suffering is the physical one. So physical suffering and then mental unhappiness, physical pleasure and mental happiness. Those are 4, and then sort of like neutral feelings. So we also have neutral feelings. So you'll have a lot of so physically you're going to have a lot more pleasure, and also mentally mental happiness, because with anger that creates a lot of physical suffering. I mean, so it has long-term drawbacks. You know, like increases your blood pressure. You might even get angry and have a heart attack. Even if that doesn't happen, you know, it's sort of you can't sleep properly, you can't eat properly. If you've ever got really angry, you'll know how your food goes down in lumps. You know, you just can't eat properly. You can't digest properly. You can't sleep. You can kind of hardly sit still. You know. Yeah. So and then so physically it's very uncomfortable. Mentally also, you know, completely agitated, miserable, unhappy. I mean, I know, of course, full of anger. It's just this fire going on in the mind. And then so by practicing patience, the opposite of that happens. So, you know, lots of physical well-being and also mental well-being. You'll die without regret. So, you know, as a life of anger means you're going to die with regret. Why will you die with regret? Because of all the harm you've done. And so you won't have that kind of regret when you've you know, been practicing patience. And then afterwards, you'll be born amongst the gods after this body has perished. In other words, next life will be, it says born among gods. I mean, who wants to be a god? Much better to be a human being. I think that, yeah, I think definitely. I mean, you know, if you believe in the existence of gods, it all sounds very nice. Long life and lots of pleasure and no illness and stuff like that. But otherwise, long term, not a very good idea. Better to have precious human rebirth like this, like the one we have at the moment. So we'll be reborn amongst. So the thing is that, you know, anger means you destroy any goodness you've already built up, created in yourself, and you create all sorts of negative karma. So then it's very difficult for things to go well during the dying process and next life. Yeah. So then you were born amongst gods. The Compendium of Affection says, I think just maybe read this quote from the Compendium of the Perfections, and we'll look a bit more of it at it next time. For those with a mind that neglects the welfare of others, selfish person, it was taught that the best of ways is patience. Patience protects that which is good and excellent in the world from the faults of anger. It's the best of ornaments for the strong. It's the peak of power for those embracing austerities. A torrent of water for the grassland fires of malice. So just like water quenches fire, patience quenches anger, puts out the fire of anger, and then stops all that destruction. All harm is removed by patience in this life and others. The arrows of words of unruly beings are erect against the armor of patience of excellent beings. Thereby they turn into excellent flowers of praise and become attractive garlands of fame. Patience is also the workshop where bodies are made with beautiful qualities and adorned with the signs of a Buddha. So meditate on the benefits as taught here until you reach a strong and stable certainty about them. So that's your homework for the coming week. Think about these things. But it's good, actually. It's yeah. I think one thing that's, well, it's going to talk about the benefits of. So it's talking about the benefits of patience. I think probably what he will talk about. But one thing that's really important, I think, is to get a really strong conviction through having reflected on it and thought about it and seen the truth of it yourself, that patience is something I really need. That's one quality I really need. Because then actually, if you feel like patience is something you really need, the next thing that follows automatically after that is, therefore, I need these situations where I'm going to be able to practice patience. In other words, I need these situations which would normally make me angry and want to retaliate. I really need those things. Okay, so let's dedicate. Oh, we didn't do the beginning prayers, did we? But we can do a few prayers of dedication, please. Okay. And may the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. Keep going, please. Incomparable kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows the reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to this virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigrated beings without exception to that state. So this one is good to read. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. As long as any sentient being has not, so maybe we'll make this the last one. As long as any sentient being has not been liberated from samsara, may I abide in samsara to help them, even though I achieve highest enlightenment. Please also dedicate for the quick return, but not just quick return, but everything to go really well for the new reincarnation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche and all the other gurus who, our gurus that have passed away and come back, for everything to go well in their lives. If they haven't come back yet, then to come back and carry on benefiting sentient beings. Okay. See you next week. Bye.